ladies and gents, and welcome back to the final episode with Trisha Morrison, the wife and widow of former WBO heavyweight champion Tommy Morrison. Now, I would like to formally apologize to Trish and to my audience as I had accidentally lost the file for our third episode, so we decided we're going to redo this one. And also, I would like to just plug here a little bit that once I have finished this interview with Trisha Morrison, I'll be heading on over to riverside.com so you can watch my seventh episode regarding the Bilal Muhammad case study and why he is one of the most disliked welterweights on the UFC's roster. So, Trisha, we've spoken before. We've had our first two episodes. Thank you once again for coming on to the Pulsing Hour Pulsing podcast. Great to have you again.
Hi, Pierce. Thanks for having me back. Lucky that we're both here. We experienced a very near tornado in the last few days. So I'm glad that I'm able to finish podcast number 3.
Yeah, me too. Right. So you wanted me to ask 5 particular questions, and we're going to
Yes.
get right into them. So the very first question I have is what led to Tommy's downfall, and can you explain the mugshot that both haters and the media use?
Sure. Yes. I'm going to explain to you exactly Tommy's downfall, and you'll not hear a lot of that from the mainstream media. But there is a mugshot that's out there, and you probably have seen it, and they've been using it as an AIDS mugshot. Well, actually, that is a mugshot that was taken when Tommy came out of jail after 30 days. And when he came out of jail, he had an insect bite to the side of his chest. I hope you can see that.
Hmm.
And it was drained, and he went for surgery, and it was the surgery from hell. And when we came out of the hospital in 2011, we went home, and there was a home health nurse there. And the surgery should have been just 1 hour. In fact, it ended up being about 5 or 6 hours. And instead of being an in and out surgery, we ended up being in the hospital there for about 8 days. When we came home, the next morning, the home health lady came to visit us, Pierce, and she was just going to change a bandage on the side of his chest. So if you can imagine, that's his chest there. And there was this bandage on the side here. After the surgery, she was just going to change this piece of bandage. And so when she took that piece of bandage off, I said, wait, there's something sticking out of his chest. And she said, well, there's nothing else documented in my paperwork for me to look at. So I said, no, there's definitely something sticking out of his chest. So Tommy was sitting on a stool in the kitchen, no anesthesia, no pain pills, nothing, because we too thought it was just going to be a quick bandage change. Anyway, she slowly started to pull. Okay, and this is a reenactment. This is not the exact gauze because the exact gauze was covered in blood clots and did not smell very good. And it had been inside his chest for 8 days, undocumented, and it came out of his chest. And I don't think anybody has ever seen Tommy cry in the ring. He was crying as this was being pulled out of his chest. And it ended up being 12 foot of surgical gauze that had been tightly packed into his chest that had not been removed after surgery. And it caused septic shock, septicemia, and that is what led to Tommy's downfall. This is the gauze, and it's 12 foot of gauze. So I don't know how tall you are, Pierce, but it was at least twice Tommy's height, really tightly packed in there. The nurse, the home health nurse, she collapsed on the sofa, and I took care of her. And then a friend of Tommy's who was there, who witnessed all this, he took care of Tommy. And Tommy just shut himself up in the bathroom, and you could hear he was in a great deal of pain. that night, when he went to the bedroom, his right leg gave way, the side of his surgery, and his head fell straight through a wall, a bedroom wall. It's called sheetrock out here, it's the plaster. Went straight through that, and he landed on the side of his neck. And from that moment onwards, that was the beginning of his downfall.
Hmm.
And horrible situation. This, I took photographs all the way through. You can see there's the gauze in there. There's
Yeah.
another shot there. And this is Tommy's actual chest. There's another shot of the gauze in there. This is what the chest looked like once the gauze had been taken out.
Oh,
You could literally put your whole hand in his chest there. And after 12 months to the day, his chest actually did heal. So, for all those that are saying that he wasn't able to heal his chest, he did heal. It was a horrible scar. And the nurse didn't tell us to go to the emergency. She basically handled it there and then. Yes, I did call the surgeon as this was happening, and I told him, and basically he apologized. I did file with the medical advisory board in Tennessee, and they lost the paperwork. I
hmm.
had to refile the paperwork, and when I refiled it, they said I was out of time. There's a statute of limitations there. So that was the actual downfall of Tommy Morrison. That's where that mugshot comes from. Is he came out of jail with an insect bite, and it's basically been used as a mugshot to say, oh, look, yeah, he had HIV in 96, he's dying of AIDS, look at this photo. But that was the photo of him with
Hmm.
a tick bite, and after 12 foot of gauze had also been taken out.
Oh boy, yeah, that I can't imagine the amount of pain that Tommy must have endured, the amount of sleepless nights that could have caused the poor fella.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very bad situation, totally bad. That was the beginning of the actual downfall. Yeah.
Mm. So, I would like to go on to the next question. How did Tommy overcome his drug addiction that people still blame on his eventual death or
Yeah.
downfall?
And even this morning, when I wake up, I've got this. I post a picture of the front of a boxing magazine on Facebook, and somebody just comments not on the page of that boxing page, but they post, "Oh well, if he had been able to control his lifestyle, he would have done a lot better." And it's like, what does that comment have to do, first of all, with my post of Riddick Bowe on the front of a boxing page? But everybody seems to think that Tommy got kicked out of boxing because of drugs, and that Tommy wasn't really a goat, right? Because of his drug situation. Well, if you look at the timeline, as you've seen in our podcast number 1 and 2, part 1 and 2, you'll see that he really hit the drugs hard in the darkest years after he got kicked out of boxing. And 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 he admits it. He doesn't ignore the fact that he was on hardcore drugs like cocaine and meth and everything else, even shooting himself up, with drugs. How he got off drugs in the 10 years of dark years, he didn't get off them. And the reason why is because friends who are not really friends were giving him free drugs, just to see this heavyweight boxer all spun out and spending time with him. And it was a really sad situation that when I met up with him, one of the things I did, Pierce, is I picked him up from the airport one day. He came back from shooting one of the video game shoots in Los Angeles. And I picked him up, and I had bought like one of those $5 drug tests from the local store. And he got in the car, and I said, Pee, pee now. And I had a cup, right? And I said, whip it out and pee in this cup. I'm going to test you. And he looked at me. He was completely shocked. I was also shocked. I was a little bit scared. Here I am telling him to do a drug test, sitting in a car outside Wichita Airport. But anyway, he complied, right? And so I'd never done a drug test before on anybody. So I sat there and he was, his head was down, and I tested it. And just about everything flashed up on this drug test, Pierce. I looked at him and I obviously didn't expect all the results that I saw. And I said, okay, this is an ultimatum. You can either carry on being how you've been since 1996, all spun out. You can either carry on associating yourself with these friends that are giving you drugs. You can carry on being arrested for DUIs and drug paraphernalia, or you can change your life. It is possible to do that. So he didn't answer me immediately. We went and we had breakfast. And later on that day, he said, yeah, I want to change my life. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of being on drugs. And so the battle began. This was a completely different fight for Tommy, which he did win in the end. But it did mean that he had to delete everybody's name out of his cell phone bill that were not really friends, but that were there just to give him drugs. He did have to attend rehab, which wasn't easy at the beginning. And literally, I got him in the car and I drove him, waited, picked him, dropped him back off, backwards and forwards. But when he finally got his negative test results for drugs, he had a new look on life. He knew he could do it. And he made photocopies of his test results, Pierce, and he put a copy in the car, a copy on the fridge, a copy by the bed. He had them everywhere, right? He put it out online. He put it out on Facebook. He was so proud. And he kept saying, if I can do it, if Tommy Morrison can do this, so can anybody else. And when he attended drug rehab, he actually said to all the kids that were in his class, he was the oldest, he said, don't waste your time. I wasted so many years since 1996 being spun out, and it was scary, and I just wasted a lot of time. And the kids began to listen. I was able to, with the help of WBO, this year at an amateur boxing event that was done for Tommy, and WBO sent me these little medals, and it was, don't do drugs, and it was the Tommy Morrison tournament, and I was able to actually get the word out that Tommy completed drug rehab. So for anybody that keeps saying, oh, it's because of his drugs that kicked him out of boxing, no, it wasn't. He was kicked out of boxing by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and that wasn't over drugs. So I just wanted to clear that matter up.
I suppose that leads on to the next question. In relating to Nevada, had they found no evidence, why would they not license Morrison?
Yeah, that is another situation. And if anybody takes the time, which I hope you do, please go back to podcast 1 and 2. You'll find there that Pierce, you're not just saying they had no evidence. It's actually clear they did not have any evidence in this lawsuit. And just to reiterate one of the documents, they say this honorable court should not lose sight of the fact that no one diagnosed Mr. Morrison with HIV on February 10, 1996. This is docket number 217, page 4 of 14. This is the commission themselves saying that they had no evidence, right? So what they said in this lawsuit is, and this comes from docket number 140, filed on the 18th of April, 2016, page 15, line 19 to 20. And I'm saying this because you yourself can go get this document. They said, Morrison failed to comply with NAC 467.027 Section 3, right? And as a result, was not issued a license. So what the commission are saying 20 years later is not that Tommy Morrison had HIV, they're saying that he failed to comply with a legislation, a rule, NAC 467.027 Section 3. Well, 2 years after that, I go ahead and contact the legislator in Nevada and I ask for copies of their rules in 1996. And these are properly sealed. It's done by the legislator. It's filed in the archives because I couldn't believe that the attorney for the Nevada Commission, which is the attorney general, would lie to me by saying that Tommy had failed a legislative rule, a boxing rule. And P.S. I come to find out that that rule, NAC 467.027 Section 3, did not exist on
Right.
February 10th, 1996. It didn't exist. It hadn't been passed by the legislature. It hadn't been proposed, and it wasn't proposed and passed until 1 year later in December of 1997. So the commission then admit that they go granted the 1996 version of NAC 467.027 only provided that a boxer had to establish that they were physically and mentally fit for competition. And that they filed in 2020, only 4 years ago. And of course, the physician in this court case says, hello, Tommy, I certainly support your desire to get a boxing license. You are correct. I did not diagnose you as having AIDS. I did your required licensing exam and found you physically qualified to and fit to box at the time. So there you go. So not only did he not have HIV or HIV infection or the virus, he also didn't violate that rule, NAC 467.027 Section 3B, right? What can you do, Pierce? You know, you believe the attorneys, you go through a lawsuit, you're just the widow, and yet you come out with all this information that the media won't put out there.
Well, one thing that's going to be happening next week is that I'm going to be going out with a few friends, and I'm going to be at least toasting to Tommy and yourself for this victory because it's long overdue, and I hope that can attest to something. Even though I'm living on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah, that means the world to me. I know that you have probably the smallest podcast on the island of Ireland, right? But certainly a lot of people have already seen part one and part two, and I know are waiting to see part three. Yeah, so I really appreciate your help.
Thank you very much. So there's three fights that I want to get into, and so the first one is relating to a bout that is signed for July 20th. It is the former heavyweight champion, Mike Tyson. He's coming out of retirement once again. His last fight was in 2020 against Roy Jones Jr. as an exhibition bout, and he's now signed to fight Jake Paul for July 20th under Netflix. And there has also been the rules have been they've been shown all over social media, including the likes of Twitter, Instagram, about the rules and the commission that it was sanctioned under. The head guards, they're not allowed. It's 14-ounce gloves. So I want to guess your perspective and your take on this upcoming fight.
Yeah, interesting. I saw that too today, that it's now a professional bout and that the results will actually be placed out there on BoxRec for both Mike Tyson and what's his name again? Jake Paul?
Jake Paul, yeah, that's the same.
Yeah. I find it really interesting. I have one view is that if Tommy were here today, that he would probably want to fight Jake Paul as well, right?
Mhm.
So would they allow that? Who knows? But why, first of all, is the bout in Texas? Why is it not in Vegas, right? I'm keen to know on the rules and regulations. As you see with Tommy's lawsuit, I really researched what the rules were at the time that Tommy was trying to get licensed. So really, this does open up licensing for boxers over the age of 40, 50, maybe over the age of 60. Who knows? You can't discriminate with age now. Are they going to be supervised drug tests? That's what I would like to know. And when are the drug tests going to be done? Is VADA going to be the ones that will do the drug test? Will they be tested before and after? Right? I've got all these questions as well. I've looked at Mike Tyson's photos and stuff like that of a couple of years ago. He's in a wheelchair. Are they going to do proper MRIs? Who's going to do the MRI? Who's going to do the medical part? To me, in a way, age should not matter. It's whether you're fit to fight, right?
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you pass all the medical tests and legitimately pass the medical tests, you know, for me, go for it, right? I know that I think I saw that they weren't, or Tyson wasn't doing it for the money. So maybe they'll donate the money to retired boxers. That's what I would like to see. But I have my own questions. I wonder, I mean, the fight is still a little bit off. So those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you want me to be completely honest, and while we're on the record, Trisha, I do believe that it is one of the biggest disgraces to boxing. I don't think that it benefits. The only person that it really benefits is Jake Paul because he gets a big payday and he can say that he beats a legend. Now, there was another case of this happening. However, it wasn't a younger boxer. It was, in fact, the retired former heavyweight champion, Vitor Belfort, and also the retired UFC heavyweight champion, excuse me, Vitor Belfort. Those two actually fought on the undercard of Anderson Silva versus Tito Ortiz. And Evander Holyfield was 60 years of age when he fought Vitor, who's in his late 40s now. But when it going back to the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, I don't see why it needs to happen. Mike Tyson he's done everything. He's proved everything. And he proved that he was one of the scariest men alive to ever step inside the boxing ring. So I don't really find it very necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. It's a different market that he's out there promoting it to. The YouTubers, and they'll certainly spend a lot of money. I guess it's going to be free on Netflix, though. I mean, or you have to at least have Netflix to be able to watch the fight for free.
Now, we also have a big heavyweight title fight coming in just a matter of days. For the undisputed WBC title, lineal heavyweight title, Ring Magazine titles, Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury. The Ring of Fire in Saudi. Come on. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, again, I find it interesting. Why is it all happening out there? Why is it not happening in Vegas? What's going on in Vegas that they cannot have these big fights? That's one of my questions. Who's going to win, Tyson or Usyk? I think probably I'm going to say Tyson.
Oh, yeah, it's I've had tons of college buddies that say that Usyk might pull off the win, and after what was it, the Dubois fight, a lot of people are questioning Usyk in terms of his, I think it was his durability, and not only his durability, but maybe his stamina as well, because as we know, Tyson is, he's a very large man. He's like he has a big belly on him. And that goes back to our other episodes where we were talking about physical fitness and relation to bodies. That it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. So, and the last question in relation to Tommy Morrison is that you wanted to talk about his fight with Riddick. So, if you can, please go ahead. Oh, actually, there's no
Yeah.
more, but we have 10 minutes left, so hopefully we'll get them covered beforehand. So go ahead, and so the question is relating to Riddick, Raddick, and also any
Radek.
postmortems. Yeah, I'm terrible with name pronunciations. And any death certificates, if you can, please go over them right now.
Sure, real quick. I hold the death certificate of Tommy Morrison, my husband. No AIDS, no HIV on there. I did tell them to put HIV AIDS on there if that's what they found. But again, I always thank the guys that did the antemortem, Dr. Nielsen from Boston, Massachusetts. He did a post-mortem report, and this is all publicly available, and also Dr. Hinrichs from University of Nebraska Medical Center. He did his post-mortem, and again, it says no retroviral budding is present, no abnormality, no retroviral inclusions, no viral particles were seen. A retrovirus is HIV, and they found no retroviruses. And Stephen Hendricks as well involved in the post-mortem. These are guys that are just experts in the field of virology and microbiology. I can go on, Pierce. All these faces, again, are on my Facebook page and a whole bunch of people. And I won't go through with it because I wanted to show you something in a little bit. But these are all faces of people that actually did testing on Tommy for any AIDS defining diseases and found none. He was totally negative for them. So that covers the post-mortem and the death certificate. Some people ask, well, are you still in the lawsuit? The lawsuit got shut down after going from federal court to the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco, to the US Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., back again to federal, back again to ninth, back again to the US Supreme Court. I didn't give up. But it got shut down due to statute of limitations, which meant that this should have happened in 1996. How could we have made this happen if all the information and admissions haven't come out until 20 years later? But one person did post, the crime is in the cover-up. If she can prove a federal crime was committed against him and that obstruction of justice has continued on until now, then I believe that halts all statute of limitations. So this may not be over. So yeah, I wanted to show you before we close. I know I'm always running out of time. Is I wanted to show in podcast 1 and 2, you get to see Tommy's belt, which is the one from Rocky 5, and then the belt from WBO, which is right behind you, but the replica belt. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to podcast 1 and 2. But I also want to show you the Donovan Razor Ruddock belt, right? Which is absolutely amazing. Can you see that, Pierce?
Yeah.